Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, the ABCs of EPDs and LBC, lots of acronym there, Environmental Product Declarations and Living Building Challenge. I'm John Ricco, APA Executive Director, and I thank you for being here today, and I thank you for taking the time to participate in this webinar. We've got a few announcements before we jump into our educational session today. Just wanted to talk a little bit about some upcoming events and some other information. First and foremost, our 2024 spring workshop coming up on ultra high performance concrete, which will be April 3 through 6 in Tacoma, Washington, just outside of Seattle. I encourage you all to check out the information on our website. It's going to be a great educational opportunity for y'all. We're going to be out at Tim McGordy's brand new 80,000 square foot plant in Tacoma. We're going to do some of the education is actually going to be hands-on inside the plant. We're going to spend about a half a day doing that. We'll also have some classroom instruction as well. We're going to tour his facility and another precast plant in Seattle as well. So encourage you to check out the information. Registration's open. So go ahead and take a look at it. We hope to see you out there. And mark your calendars for our next upcoming webinar, which will be on the 13th of March. It's going to be on insulated wall panels, and we'll have Eric Arvalo with Leviat putting on that webinar for us. So mark your calendars. I know folks need CE, so it's a great way to get it. Always like to remind you all that we have a great office supply program with ODP, which is Office Depot's business-to-business unit. So check it out on our website. You can save a ton of money on stuff you're already buying. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Earning CE couldn't be easier. There's many ways to do it. Many of which are here on this slide, but the easiest is to check out our YouTube channel and subscribe so you see when new content's posted. All the webinars like this one that we put on are archived there, so you can go and watch those. We also have some playlists on various types of content where you can get continuing education credits there as well. So check out the YouTube channel, and I think that's it. So let's go ahead and jump into things here. Let me bring up our presenter. Let's do this. And we will go ahead and get started. Just in terms of questions, if you are logged into a YouTube account, you can go ahead and send questions via the chat feature. And then if you're not logged into a YouTube account, we'll have a pop-up that comes up intermittently where you can email questions, and we'll ask those of our presenter, Lisa, when we get them, as we get them. So with that, let me introduce our presenter today, which is Lisa Barnard. She is the Sustainability and Customer Engagement Program Manager for CRISO and GCP, St. Gobain Chemicals. She has been a key contributor to the world of construction for more than 15 years, focusing on driving sustainability programs. Her expertise spans various building materials, life cycle assessments, environmental product declarations, corporate sustainability reporting, UN Millennium Development Goals, and building standards and certification programs. She collaborates with a diverse range of stakeholders, including architects, designers, engineers, contractors, concrete producers, chemists, and more, all to drive the adoption of sustainability initiatives. So with that, Lisa, I welcome you. I thank you for being here today, and I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone. My favorite topic, so hopefully I don't talk too much. leave some time for questions. But I will dive right in. As John said, we're going to talk a little bit about health product declarations, environmental product declarations, building certification programs, and just some background on all of that, and then maybe some ways that things that can help you maybe moving forward when you get questions about these things and they come up in projects. This is my agenda. So I'm going to give you just a little bit about us because our background over the last year has been a little bit complex. So I want to explain who we are, but then I'll give an overview of Lead and Living Building Challenge, just a really high level overview, talk about health product declarations, environmental product declarations, and then a little bit on some of my recommendations on where and how you can get some help around these topics. So just briefly, last year, GCP was acquired by Saint-Gobain, and so that was we were purchased in 2022. And then in 2021, CRISO was also purchased by Saint-Gobain. So in 2023, CRISO, GCP all came together as an admixture company under the Saint-Gobain umbrella. So we are a global company now, CRISO, GCP. In North America, these are just some of our stats. So we have a lot going on, a lot of support in the U.S. and Canada. It's around concrete admixtures and technologies and solutions and flooring systems. So just a lot of support here in North America. And related to what are our sustainability goals? This is a very high level, but like many of our customers, driving towards carbon neutrality by 2050. And what's that look like? Obviously, creating products that help you guys, reduce the CO2 of your products, concrete. So, all the solutions that we can come up with to help in that area, limiting our own environmental impact, right? So looking at our own operations and assessing that. And 2023 was the first year of gathering data across both companies, system-wide and reporting, so we can start to look at and benchmark our, where do we go from here, and then taking actions across the supply chain. So this is starting to work, with our suppliers around our sustainable initiatives, telling them what we're looking for, related to LCA and environmental product declarations, as well as looking at logistics, transportation. It's a lot of things, a lot of work. We're diving in, together. Integrated company now. Some of those goals look like 100% of our family products assessed by life cycle analysis by 2030. So we can start using that information, to drive eco-innovation. So looking at, where can we start to drive down GWP of our products? Specifically in the admixture side, the GWP of chemical admixtures is not particularly high, but, we know there are areas we can do better. So just a little bit about us and our commitments. So just diving right in, I'm sure you all have heard of, leadership for energy and environmental design. It's been around for quite some time. And then there's the Living Building Challenge through the Living Futures Institute. Both are driving, LEED is older, both are driving, particularly in the materials and resources credits, driving what we're talking about in terms of a lot of the documentation and things that you've been probably asked for. It's under this materials credit category, things like responsible materials, red list. You've probably heard of this red list concept, and potentially people asking for this. There's even other things in there around net positive waste. A lot of it is around just responsible materials, from the standpoint of what you may be asked for. Both organizations have started driving towards, I think, I've been in this conversation for quite some time, and was previously at BASF. And in 2011, in particular, LEED started asking for, environmental information, and Living Building Challenge came on the scene and was asking for health information related to toxicity. And it's been this over this whole time that this has evolved and come into more play with projects. A lot of it early on driven by these organizations, as well as a lot of the design community as well, and some early adopters from the manufacturing side. So, as far as all of this goes, from an environmental product declaration or health product declaration, the driving thought behind it is material transparency. So I guess the ultimate goal, allowing building professionals to look at, what are the impacts, like embodied carbon or toxic ingredients or byproducts, And to some degree, they're starting to look at social responsibility in the supply chain. This has the idea of transparency has been difficult from a manufacturing standpoint, just because there doesn't tend to be one source, and so it's been a lot coming from a manufacturer. Some of the things we manufacture directly, and it's easy to put together documentation. Others, it's not so easy. But this is the drive, and early on, I'm not sure folks were necessarily using it to for decision making, because a lot of people were just learning on the fly. But it was a drive towards just looking for more of this information to build healthier buildings, to lessen environmental impact, and to even look at where are the materials that we're getting coming from, and what are the practices in those areas, in terms of the health and safety of their workers. So the idea of material transparency is broad, and it covers a lot of areas. Specifically, talking about a health product declaration, it's interesting the development of this. We've gone through various different iterations, and early on as a manufacturer, we were very concerned about having to disclose proprietary ingredients, and so manufacturers were involved in the development of this. So it's a transparent disclosure of all the products, all the constituent ingredients of a product. So if you consider that from the standpoint of a chemical admixture, you can see this is just a brief snapshot, and I put a draft up here, but it's essentially highlighting the CAS number, the chemical abstract number, the percentage, and what that ingredient is, as well as it gets screened against some hazard and toxicity systems, at a high level. So you can see right here, just as a snapshot, I'm highlighting water and calcium nitrate in this product. You have to disclose to various different levels to be included in the Living Building Challenge. So just to give you some information, and I work on these with my product stewardship team internally, and I typically tend to disclose what's on an SDS, and then let the design team come back to me and ask if they need more. A lot of times they need, for their projects, they need at least 50% of the ingredients disclosed. So we'll go back in and take a look at it and start to adopt it. From a standpoint of your types of products, I think this would be very difficult to do with lots of different product typologies. And it would be an interesting exercise to go through and, see how we could do that. I'll talk a little bit later about recommendations on, maybe some things that you can do going forward if this seems overwhelming at this point. What's being measured? They're looking at ecotoxicity. What's the toxicity of these chemicals to the environment, to humans? It's, there's some schools of thought, precautionary, taking all precaution, even if it, it doesn't necessarily, all the research doesn't necessarily say it's bad, to risk assessment and really looking at the details and really what is the risk of exposure of this particular chemical. The hazard screening is done through a variety of different tools. Here we've got clean production action, design for the environment, alternative assessment criteria. So that's through the US EPA. And then there's different lists as well. Those of you in California are probably well aware of California Prop 65. And then the Living Building Challenge has its own red list as well of chemical ingredients they're really trying to move away from. I'm sure everyone is familiar with like formaldehyde, right? A while back, that was, a push to get rid of formaldehyde. That is one of the red list ingredients. There are many that we screen against. The HPD that I showed earlier, there is an organization called the Health Product Declaration Collaborative, and they have a tool online that you can use to build an HPD. And so I have a tool, I gather ingredient information, formulation information from my product stewardship team, and I go in, and it's a great streamlined process these days, but you do have to understand, walking through the manufacturer guide, understanding what inventory threshold Living Building Challenge prefers 100 parts per million. You've got to know, like I said, your formulation information. You need to have kind of a SDS sheet. You have to understand chemical roles, and you may need, additional information. Like if you're putting one together in your products and you're using an admixture, you may need an HPD from me to tag into this. So there's a lot of information gathering, and I recognize if you're a smaller organization, you may not have anyone that does this. So that does become a problem. You build it. There is a tool to build this, which does make it relatively easy if you've got someone that understands all of this information, right? And then you can publish within that tool, and it publishes it into a public domain where then folks, designers can come and grab it, or you can download it for yourself and share it, as customers ask for it. Like I said, even for someone like me, I'm not a chemist, right? But with the support of an internal team, I'm able to put these together. But I understand it can be limiting if you're not having, someone internally that understands, all of these things, and particularly the chemical roles. So a little bit on HPDs. This is just a summary of the different material ingredient reports, I guess, that are out there. Living Building Challenge promotes one that is called Declare. There's one called Cradle to Cradle Certified, and then there's the Health Product Declarations. The Declare and the Cradle to Cradle especially tend to be a little bit more expensive, for sure. I think folks tend to do these if they've got maybe one or two products, in their portfolio that they're promoting, or they've got things that don't change, ingredients that don't change too much, and they just prefer to have someone do this. This is a little bit more, as they say, black box, so you don't see the ingredients necessarily. It's just you've got someone, a chemical, a toxicity expert, kind of looking at this and validating it. The HPDs, you can self-report, which we're doing at this point in time. Obviously the preference would be to have them third-party verified. We have not taken it to that step yet. We'll see if the industry pushes for third-party validation. But I think folks can tell, by the information that you're putting in it, that you're disclosing everything. I guess the risk, if it not being third-party validated, is maybe you're not disclosing something that may be a red list chemical, but that's not that doesn't behoove us to do something like that and risk our reputation. So one of those other acronyms is an environmental product declaration, and whereas the health product declaration largely seems to come from Living Building Challenge, although it is incorporated into LEED, and even some owners have those standards just for themselves. Environmental product declaration has really started to be driven pretty broadly across our industry. There's just a lot of requests for environmental product declaration. It's essentially, I guess, to simplify it, a nutritional label for concrete. The global warming potential, if you will, you can't maybe you can see it up here. The global warming potential was developed to allow comparisons of global warming impacts of different gases. So it's the measure of how much energy the emissions of 1 ton of gas will absorb over a given period of time relative to the emissions of 1 ton of carbon dioxide. So the global warming potential is like the calories on your food, on your food nutrition label. And it is to some degree, right now, that's really what everyone is looking at, is the global warming potential, particularly related to concrete. And you can see on here, there's a lot of different parties involved, and I'll walk through just a high-level overview of what the process is. But by and large, EPDs tend to be third-party verified to be credible. What are we measuring in an EPD? We're looking at primarily embodied carbon. So that's the CO2 emissions arising from the life cycle of the building materials, meaning the raw materials extraction to the manufacturing, transportation, installation, maintenance, disposal, recycling of building materials. I mean, I think we're not there yet. Primarily now we're cradle to gate. And that's quantified in an environmental product declaration. Operational carbon is just the building energy consumption. So we're really focused on embodied carbon and what goes into the making of that product. Primarily right now, as I said, from cradle to gate, although there's a lot of conversation about getting more cradle to project site or even cradle to grave. This is the process. Oops, let's see, move this forward. The process, the EPD process, you have to have a product category rule. So that is sort of like the boundaries of what are we going to look at, what are we going to take into consideration in the development of this, and making sure everything, you know, is aligned in that product category. And then we use that product category rule to conduct a life cycle analysis, and this all follows an international standard. Then once we have that LCA done, it's compiled into an environmental product declaration. So very much more concise summary, and it's showing the global warming potential that I showed you earlier, as well as other environmental impacts. And then the EPD is verified, and then it's registered with a program operator. EPDs are showing up in a variety of places these days, but by and large, you know, if they have been verified with a third party, they'll show up on this program operator's site. So like ASTM or NSF is doing verification, or NRMCA, the National Ready Mix Concrete Association, showing up in places like that. Or they're getting uploaded to tools like the EC3 tool. So buildingtransparency.org has a tool where this data is getting uploaded so project teams can go in, and for a lot of different materials like concrete, you can go in and specify what you're looking for. So let's say you're looking for I'm speaking of a ready mix. If you're looking for 4,000 PSI, you know, you can go in and see what EPDs are available in any given market. So designers are starting to set GWP targets for at least ready mix concrete, sometimes based on tools like EC3. I started to talk about this a little bit, but where are EPDs showing up? A lot of different areas have buy clean programs these days. If you're in California, for sure, there's a lot going on there. I see a question, but do you want me to go ahead and answer that now, John, or just keep rolling?
Sure, that'd be great if now's a good time, or if it's something you're going to touch on later, however works for you.
No, I can go ahead and answer this. So does the project team, you know, architects, engineers, contractors, understand what they're asking for, or the burden it is, in particular, on your business? And I would say sometimes yes, sometimes no. I've talked with, particularly on the health product declaration side, I've talked with sustainability consultants that didn't necessarily understand the concrete environment and sort of what they were asking, and how the concrete industry operates. Now, that was in a ready mix arena, but I'm sure it's similar in precast. Like, if they don't know about ready mix, they probably don't know about what you guys are up to on your side of the business, and what everything entails, and how, particularly from an admixture perspective, customers aren't coming into contact with admixtures or the constituent ingredients. So a health product declaration. Is there an issue with concrete? No, not really. From an environmental product declaration standpoint, I think all of this is nuanced, and I've seen in like a lot of architects, design teams, unless they've really been on site, don't understand generally, concrete, and so they don't understand all the complexities behind the business and maybe the size of some businesses, right? And then it's not. You don't have the resources as someone like I would at a Saint-Gobain, where I've got product stewards and folks like that can help me with that. So I would say they're not unsympathetic, to the fact that this is difficult, but they're trying to drive a goal, I guess, for their owners, or for their internally, like if they're trying to drive down, if they've got goals around 2050 or 2030 challenge, things like that from an architecture perspective. So I think I'll talk about this a little bit later. I think the understanding is coming around, but it just varies depending on a person's, association with concrete. I think the best thing that you can do is just have a conversation with people and work with them, and look for compromise. Hey, I can't do that, but I can do this. Or, work through things in that manner. And I'll have some more recommendations later. But good question. Let's see. We're talking about, where are EPDs showing up? We start BuyClean programs. Type 3 EPDs actually have started to become a requirement for federal projects from the General Services Administration. And a lot of that's being pushed by the Inflation Reduction Act. I think that was out in 2020 or 2021. And the EPA has got a lot of programs and grants, and they've been starting to drive the requirement of this information. We've also seen through different programs from municipalities, they're also using this as economic incentives, and definitely carbon limits, or GWP, that GWP target carbon limits on concrete itself are being set. The GSA, the General Services Administration, has its own targets that it's looking for low carbon concrete. I don't know that anyone is taken this to the looking at the specific types of architectural precast and ornamental precast, if they've started looking at that or not from a limits perspective. I don't think we've gone that far yet, but I'm sure folks will keep pushing the limit. And I have a call into some sustainability consultants from that do it life cycle analysis, environmental product declarations for the industry, and I'm going to ask them a little bit more like where they see architectural precast headed. So this information, I think in the past, we're like, oh, this is just a nice to have. But like I was saying, it is showing up in a lot of federal mandates, and it is showing up in specifications. I've HPD here, global warming potential, EPDs. This is talking about the EC3 tool that I'd mentioned earlier. So it's showing up in a lot of different places. While it's, I think it's largely tends to be in metro, urban areas and certain parts of the country. I think we've got the coasts and then pockets of areas. I think it's definitely driving more and more. We're seeing more requests for it, more requirements on projects. Particularly from the ready mix side of things, but I think they'll continue to, press into other areas, particularly with concrete. Unfortunately, concrete due to cement has become vilified, right? Because the high GWP of cement, right? Although cement producers are doing a lot as well to drive down the CO2 up front. Let's see, we had a question. To meet these requirements, these programs, are we looking at just needing our chemical admixtures reported, or what is exactly in the precast, or do we need everything used in the process to make the precast? Mold materials, mold release, epoxy coating, pigment, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this is difficulty with knowing where to start to get all this information. Yeah, definitely. And I think to answer that in all likelihood, if we were to get to a complete life cycle analysis and EPD, we would want all that information, which I get is that's a significant ask. And that's why I said I had reached out to some experts in it, because I'm not a life cycle analysis expert. And I think I told John I'm going to get some information and report back. So maybe John can share it. But I want to get some input on where we see this headed. So you guys can try to figure it out, because it seems that's a lot of detailed information and an ask. And I know some of the businesses are relatively small. So I think a great place to start is looking at it from an industry wide perspective. And, maybe that's something can work with the association on, and maybe looking at finding some industry average information so it doesn't come down to product specific, at least at this point. I think we need to find a good standard pathway to get there, and we're not there yet. And I'm not sure that the people asking the questions, like on the project side, even understanding that architectural precast hasn't gotten that far yet. I mean, I think it's a much easier right now for ready mix because the tools have been developed, and we're looking at ingredients only, and we know what the ingredients are, and it's typically very few. And so they've created tools that are very easy for them. Different story on your side. So I just thought I would land the plane, I guess, on some thoughts on getting help. In the interim, while I think there's a lot of gray area for you guys, in the products that you manufacture right now. I would say folks like us, and I just wanted to put this together sort of generically. So I'm not here to promote any products of ours. So I put things in sort of generically from a category basis, but, in having conversations with, the architects, the design team as a whole, the products, at least, from an admixtures perspective, because I know everybody on both the EPD side and the HPD side, they jump all over chemicals, right? But because chemicals are scary, right? Because we've had things happen from an environmental perspective in the past. But admixtures do help promote CO2 reduction. Starting up in the cement additives side, they allow for quality enhancement of the materials that are being used, and they also allow for energy reduction, in the grinding process. And you can see I just put some generalized sort of, maybe what we're looking at from a reduction standpoint. I put the ag quality issue mitigators. I mean, we've got admixtures that allow for the use of maybe less than quality materials. And that allows you to use more locally available materials. So you're looking at transportation reduction from GWP perspective. High range water reducers, strength enhancers can allow for significant CO2 reduction through cement reduction and cement replacement, just like some specialty products. Accelerators, can allow for energy savings. There's all kinds of specialty products and return concrete. Fibers are enhancing concrete durability. So, just as an FYI, on our side, we can help have some of those conversations, if you're in a project and, maybe feel like you're getting bullied, by the project team. I spent a lot of time working with architects and engineers and general contractors and owners and developers. And so can help, help work through, stand beside and have some of these conversations so they know that you're doing all that you can do. Maybe you can't give them the exact documentation they're looking for, but you all are doing all that can be done on your side at this point in time. And can we find a way to compromise on what it is that they're needing? as I sort of said in that last slide, levers for optimizing CO2 reduction, transportation, obviously using local available materials, reducing, or substituting high carbon footprint materials with low carbon. So using the SCMs, or manufactured sands if you're available, or reducing cement. Energy savings, if your plant facilities, if you've not looked at that in a while, there could be the opportunity for some improvements there. Overall, right, energy use does go in behind the scenes with your your overall life cycle analysis. So if you were to do a life cycle analysis, they would be asking for all your plant data and looking at energy use and water use. So, getting involved in potentially a program, with the EPA, that helps you optimize, energy efficiency at a plant could be a good place to start. And that's also something that you can talk to a design team about. Hey, I don't have this documentation for you, but here's what I am doing, and I'm working on the other. And then obviously another lever is just working on concrete durability, right, to extend the life of the building. A lot of manufacturers these days, like us, have tools that we can help and help pre-quantify some of your products. We work with an app that we work with customers. We work with so this is like a mobile phone app, that our sales team works with, or our technical services team, or I even work with customers on. And then we also have a calculator. Right now, like I said, these are primarily on the ready mix side, but I think it would be interesting to start looking at how do we build in. We've built it in some updates for our ductile slab floor system. We've worked in some changes for our calculator to help quantify the impact for that flooring system. So I think it's possible to do that. So clearly this isn't a third party verified, but we go through the same process, right, as an ISO standard. So all I'm saying is if you're in process of trying to figure out how do I do this, how do I implement it, lean on, a supplier that maybe has the means of helping you with some of this to at least get to a next step, right? I've had some customers where I've done some of this work for them and they relied on this for, making a submittal and starting those conversations. So, lean on and rely on those that have the tools and can assist you in those situations. And then just to say, we as well, are being asked for all this information every day. And we have so many SKUs of admixture products. And so we have category specific, right? So mid-range, high range, accelerators, et cetera. We have those sort of as a category specific, as well as, and this list has grown. We have some product specific of our more, widely used products. And then we've got 15 in development from a product specific standpoint. The admixture industry, what's interesting is the information that's been used in the industry averages for concrete has come out of Europe. And so now we're working on industry information from a North American perspective. So, we're doing our part. It's a lot of work. I'm sure you guys recognize that when you're asked these questions, and hard to determine how to move forward. We're in that with you, right? We're a little larger. We've got people working on this, so I can understand where if you're a smaller company, it might be a little bit deer in the headlight. So that's why we're here. We have a sustainability program. I manage the program, and why I work together with my folks internally to help answer those questions and support what the industry needs are. And I like staying connected with, what's going on, so I can inform, people internally as to, maybe ways we can help, help you guys, help you, answer those questions and be more efficient as things just continue to evolve. So I think that, well, I guess to just summarize, I shared a lot of information, and I know it tends to be just a little overwhelming. There's just a lot of information. I think this is mostly to just help sort of educate as you're asked these questions, maybe have a little bit more background about, where are these coming from and why. I would say some of the, the key things to think about when you're looking at a specification, or they come to you with a project and they're looking at, they've got some sustainability goals maybe in the project specs. As I always say, specifically, clarify CO2 targets. If they're pushing you for, certain things and they seem outrageous, they probably are, right? Like if it seems unrealistic or too prescriptive, they're probably not understanding the process. A lot of times, at least, from a concrete perspective, you have to work with local materials. And so sometimes, they're thinking you can really drive down cement uses, but you don't have the SCMs available in a market. So, and it's even as just as small with clarifying CO2 targets, is sometimes this is all new to people. Sometimes targets or benchmarks aren't even expressed in the same unit of measure. So, making sure that, what they're showing versus what you have versus what's maybe expressed somewhere else in specifications are all the same units of measure, because I've seen them expressed differently. And obviously the numbers are going to look different, right? So just making sure and clarifying that, all the key points are really what they need to be, and challenge something if it seems unrealistic. Understand the levers, at least from a concrete. I mean, the concrete is going to be a big chunk of this, even still, even though, maybe you've got more, energy in some of the molds and things like that. And the processes, by and large, the concretes, the cement specifically is going to be key. And then mix optimization, you can, do a lot of things with optimizing mix design. And if that's, not necessarily in your wheelhouse, you've not looked at it, we're here to help with that as well. So just a few ideas on summarizing kind of, some things to think about and where to go for help. And I think that's all that I have. And I think I saw another question here. It says, if I don't have the appropriate documentation, HPDs, EPDs, will I be deselected or lose a project? And I would say generally speaking, no, particularly, if we can talk to them and say, listen, like the product category really for architectural, architectural precast products doesn't really exist, particularly for the type of products you're doing. I think they would understand that, and understanding that, maybe you just don't have the resources, like we said, to do this. I don't think you're gonna lose a project. I think the thing to do is to, again, reach out to your suppliers. And I'm always willing to have the conversation, is reach out and say, look for help, and also look for a way to compromise with the project team. Listen, I can't give you this, but I can do this, and say, my supplier for this has a HPD and an EPD. My supplier for this has this. My supplier for this has this, et cetera, et cetera. I think most project teams would be willing to accept that, particularly, the only, I guess, is, EPDs, they're starting to, consider, maybe if you can't make a GWP target, that you could be deselected. HPDs, sometimes they do the same thing, but the HPD is primarily reliant, they're really looking for, this is a chemical thing, right? So if you can get an HPD, if you're, using admixtures or something else, but topical release agent, something like that, you can get an HPD for that. I think they're going to be okay with it. I don't think there's a lot else in the process, that's going to have what they're really trying to get at as any of those red list chemicals. From an HPD standpoint, I think if you talk with them that, we're working on it, or here's what I can get you, there's something industry-wide, or there's something industry-wide that's close, or the whys behind, why we can't get it right now. I think the project teams will work with you and not, be deselected or lose a project. And, I and most of my other counterparts at other companies are always, I think, willing to help out and have some of those conversations with the design team if you need help in that arena.
Thanks, Lisa. Another question that we've got here is just sort of the why now? Why is this all coming to bear now? And is this just going to be, a fad, flash in the pan kind of thing, or is this going to be something that we're going to see sustained here for the long haul in terms of all of this stuff with environmental product declarations, the LBC, et cetera, red listing, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair question, because I think we've seen this kind of, come and go. I think one of the reasons, in a large reason for this is not going to slow down at this point. In particular, on the EPD side of things, is because the federal government is driving it now, right? We've got the Inflation Reduction Act and the federal government and the General Service Administration putting in requirements for projects for the procurement. In particular, we're talking about concrete, for low carbon concrete, and they're putting funding out there, to get at this information and to help people, get more specific around this information. I don't think it's going to go away. I mean, that said, it may wane and come back, with administration and focus, but I don't think it's going to change, because on a global level as well, there's a lot going on in terms of global targets that, countries are beholden to. So I think it's going to continue, particularly on the environmental side. I've been in this conversation for, around 15 years at this point. And it's really in the last probably year and a half that I've seen it really just take off, where we're having this conversation all day, every day, with lots of different, customers, owners, developers, suppliers, manufacturers. So, when it gets to that level, I think we've reached a tipping point. I don't think on the health product declaration side, I'm not really sure. I think it'll continue, but it's not as pressing in a lot of specifications. But I think people are always concerned about what's in their materials, particularly if it's in an interior space. I don't think it's as impacting concrete as much, because most of what we do is on the exterior. But certainly from an interiors perspective, they do get harder hit. So I think there's a lot of reasons, but largely I think because government, has started to put in procurement, as well as, state and local, governments. So when that starts to happen, things start to snowball.
Right. And this is a question more from me and hasn't necessarily come from anywhere in particular, but I think what I've been seeing and hearing from our members is that maybe there's a regional aspect to this, where some parts of the country are digging a little bit deeper in terms of some of these requirements. Where would you recommend that if we have plants that want to be a little bit more kind of get ahead of the curve and stay ahead of the game, because they've seen it once or twice and they expect that it's going to become more prevalent? I mean, where do they start? Do they just start going to all of their suppliers at this point? It seems like, the basis of our plants, most of them are, small second, third generation, fourth generation family businesses that don't have a ton of staff and don't have anyone who has the time or the abilities in some instances to even know what to ask for. Do they just start reaching out to their cement plier and say, hey, you got an EPD? And I'm sure, they probably have one maybe that the Portland Cement Association or some other group gave them. And some of the bigger entities might, but if you're going to a local place to get plywood and foam, I mean, do they have the foam that they use for their molds? I mean, do they have to get that specific? Where do you start at least? Do you just have a notebook and say, okay, here's everything we got because this is the best we're going to be able to do? I mean, what would you recommend they do to at least be a little proactive on some of this?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely start with your suppliers, and what do they have? What can they give you? And start looking at the big things, and then when you can get those, start maybe chipping away at the smaller things. In particular, looking at, I guess, what are the categories of things maybe you use the most of, right? And start checking those off. So at least it becomes manageable. Maybe what are the top 5 to 7 things that you use, on a daily basis, and start digging into those materials, get those, and then at least you've got something to share, when you're going in, and then maybe you can start checking off the rust and seeing, some of those things that are not used quite as much. Do they have an EPD? Do they have an HPD? What do they have? And then I would also say, understanding your own plant. And like I said, I believe it is the EPA that has, is it through the EPA? I think they have Energy Star type programs for manufacturing sites. So it would be good, and I'll find the link to what I'm thinking about and send it over. But I think it's good on a plant level, regardless of how small you are, is to start looking at, at least your energy use, and maybe your water consumption, things like that. So, that all speaks to that. Those are some inputs that go into an EPD. And that is, when we walk through, our customers through starting the process, that's a questionnaire that, they would get from an LCA practitioner, is starting to look at, how much energy, how much water, how much waste, and how much volume do you produce of different types of products, I guess. So starting to hone in on some of those areas, I think, is a good place to start. So if someone asks you, okay, you can't provide me an EPD, but what are you doing to make your own operations more efficient?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're able to at least say, well, we've started, gathering all this information, and we're working on an Energy Star program or something of that effect.
Mm-hmm. So just real quick, we have a few minutes here. I didn't see any more questions come through at this point. But so say, for example, energy use. I mean, obviously, most of our plants know how much, what their utility bills are over the course of a year, and they can break that down monthly, et cetera. But they also know roughly how many yards of concrete they produce over the course. So do they come up with a metric saying, okay, well, for every cubic yard of concrete, we use this much energy and this much water? Is that kind of what you're getting at when you say know how much water you use, know how much energy you use?
Yeah. I think it's good to start tracking that information, and I'll find the questionnaire that we have that that people would typically get, a plant would get for the information they're looking for, and you can see,
mm-hmm.
What information is being gathered. But certainly, starting to know and record that is helpful,
Mm-hmm.
particularly if you're gonna go down the pathway of heading into an EPD. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know within these within these tools to dig in a little bit more if it, actually allows you to do some calculations. I think it does, to start giving yourself some sort of like score, like in terms of kind of based on energy use, kind of what your score is. I know within the cement industry, there is like an Energy Star certified, cement plant, based on, certain parameters. And I don't know all the details of that. There's so much to know within this whole conversation, but I do know there are some programs where you can, monitor your usage and fall within, limits that the EPA considers, good, better, best, if you will, just, for streamlined conversation. But, I think those are good places to start. And we have a lot of, from the Saint-Gobain perspective, we have a lot of folks in the sustainability side and the sustainability process engineers, and working with the EPA and Energy Star programs is always what they recommend to our plant managers as a starting point. To just start to understand, where all your impacts are coming from.
Right. Very good. All right. Well, let me just check right here. I do not have any more questions here, and we're getting close to the 1 hour mark. So with that, I'll just close here by thanking you, Lisa, for taking the time to educate our folks on this vast and it seems unending world of acronyms and environmental and health issues. And
yeah,
so
I hope I didn't go
really
too deep on all of it, right? Like, it's so much. It really is. Hopefully it was helpful to at least get an overview. And like I said, I'm always willing to have conversations with people.
Well, thanks so much. We appreciate you and as a resource, and then for just being willing to educate our members a little bit. So appreciate that very much, and we'll let you get on with the rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.